Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to start with Unit 3. Take a look at the pictures. This unit is about pictures from real life. In this unit, we will read two selections. The first one reflects the traumatic or upsetting effect of a natural disaster on a famous person, and this disaster influences him in a positive way. Our objectives for this lesson are to identify the thematic relationship between a set of paragraphs, to identify and justify the turning point in the author's life, and finally to point out the sentence pattern of given sentences. The title of our lesson is A Wave of Love. A Wave of Love by Jet Li. We are going to start reading the text together. I would like you to think about the contrast in atmosphere that the author shows us between these paragraphs. On December 25, 2004, I arrived very late at night at the Four Seasons Hotel in the Maldives with my wife and two youngest daughters who were then 1 and 4. It was dark out, but you could still sense how beautiful and peaceful the island was. The next morning at 7:50, I felt the earth move. I knew it was an earthquake because I'd already been in several similar situations in China and San Francisco, and I didn't really think much about it. My daughters were very excited to go to the beach, so we set off earlier than planned, at around 10:10. We were just outside the hotel by the pool and slightly above the beach when I saw the water come. In the first paragraph, we get to see how the author shows us the beauty of the island, how peaceful and serene and quiet it is. In the second paragraph, however, we sense that there's something wrong that's going to happen. Let's continue to find out. It wasn't like in the movies, with a giant wave rolling toward you. The water just rose very fast, covering sunbathers on the sand. People started running toward the hotel, but they were still laughing. I picked up my 4-year-old Jane, while the nanny took Jada, and we turned toward the hotel. In that instant, the water rose to my knees. I took 2 steps and the water was at my hips. 2 more and it was at my chest. Then it was just under my nose. I put Jane on my shoulder and was trying to hold on to the nanny's hand. She was struggling because her head was already underwater. I turned back and everything, the beach, the swimming pool, was gone. I was just standing in the ocean, in nothing. I tried to hold on to the nanny, but the water was strong and pushed her and Jada away from me. Luckily, I'm famous, and people knew I was there. They'd been looking at me. I shouted at the top of my lungs for help, and 4 guys swam toward us and saved Jada and the nanny, and I was okay. The water didn't go any higher than my mouth. So, up to this point, we get to see that there's an earthquake, there's a tsunami that took place, and Jet Li, who is the famous writer, he is an actor actually. He was almost going to die, but because he was famous, they saved him and his family. let's talk a little about the contrasting atmospheres or situations in the paragraphs that we read. When we say contrasting, we mean that they are opposite to one another, so they are different. For instance, in paragraph 1, the atmosphere is peaceful, quiet, and serene, and the reason behind that is because there's nothing going on there. So, the author is just describing when they got to the Maldives and how the island seemed so quiet and peaceful and beautiful. In paragraphs 3, 4, and 5, however, when we read about the tsunami taking place, we can describe the atmosphere as tragic, disastrous, and horrible. Let's continue reading together paragraph 6. In those few seconds after a disaster strikes, you don't have time to think. You just move forward and instinct kicks in. When the wave was gone, there was nothing left. The electricity was down, all communications were down but for the hotel's satellite phone. And we were told we had water for 5 days and food for 3. So obviously, there's nothing left, everything is destroyed, and everything was just gone. As you can notice, paragraphs 2, 3, 4, and 5, all of these paragraphs actually focus on the earthquake in the Maldives and the tragedy that followed. So all of these paragraphs talk about the same idea. They talk about the tragic event that took place, which was the earthquake in the Maldives, and they talk about the tragedies that followed. So we just mentioned that paragraphs 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all of them talk about the same idea. All of these paragraphs talk about the incident that happened, which is the earthquake, and the tragedies that followed. In this case, we need to talk about something that we call the thematic relationship. What do we mean by thematic relationship? It's the connection or link between two or more sentences or between paragraphs in terms of ideas, which means meaning. So basically, when we ask you what is the thematic relationship between these paragraphs, we mean how are these paragraphs connected in terms of ideas? There are different types of thematic relationship. Today we will cover only 2. The first one, addition, reinforcement, support. From its name, the paragraphs here talk about the same idea, adding new information and details about the same topic. So, addition, reinforcement, support. From its name, we can see that here the paragraphs talk about the same idea. The author is just adding new details to support his opinion or to support the topic, to make us understand it better. Another one is cause-effect. From its name, one paragraph talks about the causes of a certain issue, and another one talks about the effects. Let's continue reading paragraph 7 together to see how the earthquake affected Jet Li. That night, everybody camped in the hotel lobby. I held my youngest daughter as she slept in my arms, but I couldn't sleep myself, and I had a lot of time to think. I thought that if God had saved me, it must mean something. That day in the Maldives was a real turning point for me. I had spent the first 41 years of my life thinking about Jet Li first, wanting to prove I was special, wanting to prove I was a star. Everything I'd done was self-centered. In that lobby, however, I saw people of different colors, speaking different languages, helping each other. It was very much like in the movies, with people putting women, children, and the elderly first. And I thought that if everybody helps, if everybody does a little bit, it will make a big difference. So we can see how the earthquake changed Jet Li. So he used to think about himself a lot. He was a self-centered person, so he was full of himself. He just thought about being famous. So he didn't really care about others. So that incident actually changed him from a person who was self-centered to a person who would actually think about others, to think that if everybody helps, that will actually make a big difference. Homework. Answer the following questions in your own words. Use complete sentences. 1. What's the thematic relationship among paragraphs 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? Justify. So go back, check the paragraphs to be able to identify how are these paragraphs connected, how are they linked together according to ideas. In what sense was the earthquake that hit the Maldives a turning point in Jet Li's life? Explain. So basically this question asks, how was the earthquake a turning point, meaning how did it change Jet Li? Question number 3. Give the pattern or sentence pattern of the following sentences. So in the previous lesson, you took what sentence pattern is. Please go over the types and then solve this question. If everybody helps, it will make a big difference. In that lobby, however, I saw different people of different colors helping each other. My daughters were excited to go to the beach, so we set off earlier than planned.